and gentlemen, we are back. And we want to take this opportunity to spotlight some of our major sponsors. Of course, McDonald's is our presenting sponsor for CBIC 2020, rising to the challenge. Well, these folks are definitely rising to the challenge as being among our major sponsors. Also, Merck Animal Health, Allflex, Animal Intelligence for Life, who just sponsored our break, FCC, Farm Credit Canada, John Deere, and Cargill, who will be presenting our final session of the day, starting at about 4 p.m. this afternoon. So many thanks to our sponsors. Very proud of that. We come now to another of our very, very popular panel discussions. And this is one that we are very, very excited about. Sustainability, Path for the Future. Exploring the journey of beef sustainability, including lessons learned in 2020 from across the supply chain, consumer attitudes about sustainability, and how to engage today's consumer. If our last session was coming to us as a coaching opportunity for how to all be more effective advocates, well, this one's talking specifically with respect to sustainability right here at home in Canada, and demonstrating demand for sustainability certification and opportunities for beef producers. Our sponsor for this and bringing us this panel discussion is RealAg, and we're very, very fortunate to have Sean Haney, the owner of RealAgriculture.com, as our moderator. Sean is the founder of Real Agriculture and who manages one of the leading industry digital sites for Canadian farmers and ranchers across Canada. RealAgriculture.com is the digital agriculture information and insight leader in Canada, serving farmers across the country, covering the latest agriculture, agronomics, current events, and farm show features. Sean is also the co-host of Real Ag Radio, which is broadcast on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM Daily at 4 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Western, or Mountain Time. Folks, we're very excited to have Sean Haney, who has been part of CBIC since our inception 4 years ago at our first of our 5 events, and this tremendous panel. Take it away, Sean.
Welcome, everybody, to the Canadian Beef Industry Conference Sustainability Panel. I'm the host, Sean Haney of RealAgriculture.com and Real Ag Radio on Rural Radio 147 on Sirius XM. We've got a great panel here for you here today to talk about really a key topic in our industry. And what makes it so key is it's used not only in production, but also in the marketing of the products that we are producing. And that word is sustainability. And what makes it so complex is that it has so many different definitions or meaning to people, depending on where you are in this value chain. We got a great panel to discuss this topic here today. We're going to start off with Mary Jo Tate. She's with Celtic Ridge Farms of London, Ontario. Mary Jo, how are you?
Good, thanks, Sean. Thank you so much for having me and looking forward to it.
Yeah, so tell us very quickly about your operation.
Sure. So we're actually located about 45 minutes southwest of London, Ontario, so about 2 hours southwest of Toronto. We have a 100-head cow-calf operation. We finish about 90% of our calves on our farm, and we sell them direct to consumer. So that's primarily through our farm gate sales at our store, as well as restaurants and chefs. We also, part of our philosophy on our farm is we practice rotational grazing and strip grazing. So all our calves are born. We calve pretty much throughout May to, we're getting to the end of it now, so the first part of August, which allows us to be able to finish calves year round for our demand. So we calve out on pasture and then bring everybody in the fall and finish them, and away we go. So we use a local abattoir for our processing. It's my husband and myself and our 2 kids who are 6 and 3, so it's a little bit busy. We both work off farm as well. And yeah, excited to be here today and to talk about sustainability and a little bit about our farm and our involvement in the CRSV.
Absolutely. Great to have you here. Our next panelist is Carleen Clark. She's with KCL Cattle Company Limited out of Taber, Alberta. Carleen, how are you?
Not Taber, actually. Lethbridge County, that's...
Okay. Okay, no, we wouldn't want to put you in the MD of Tabor. That would be totally offside. Okay. Lethbridge County. Hey, Carlene, tell us about your operation.
My family and I run KCL Cattle Company. It's a mixed cattle feeding and farming operation. So we feed 15,000 head and farm out 4,000 acres. So we feed the cattle from calf or yearling to finishing. I'm a third generation farmer. So my dad's dad was a grain farmer and had a small feed yard, which my parents purchased in 94 when I was just a young child. And in 1999, they purchased a larger feedlot. And then in 2009, we bought a second. So I grew up on the farm and watched my parents grow and expand KCL through all the ups and downs of the cattle business. And in the last 10 years, my husband and I have actually had the opportunity to be a part of the growth of KCL alongside my parents and my sister. I have a daughter, and my sister has 2 little girls as well. And so I really look forward to seeing them grow up on the farm and hopefully helping us grow our business.
Absolutely, absolutely. Next, it is Darren Frey. He's with Gordon Food Service. Darren, how are you?
Good, but before I start, I'm going to just make everybody feel safe. I'll put on my
The meat mask.
my meat mask here. If you do see anybody going into restaurants across Canada wearing something like this, it's one of our Gordon Food Service sales reps, and they're making sure they keep the restaurateurs safe before they go in to take orders.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'll take that off now so you can hear me properly. My name is Darren Fry. I work for Gordon Food Service. I'm the National Merchandising Manager for red meats across Canada. For those of you that aren't familiar, Gordon Food Service is a broadline distributor. We have facilities in every province. We service restaurants, caterers, hotels, any food service, commercial industry really. With multiple lineups of products. Not only do we do that, but we've also got what we call specialty companies, which do further process. So we have further processing facilities that would cut steaks, cut seafood, and supply it to our customers. We're really a one-stop shop. And
you've had no shortage of challenges through COVID-19, man. Oh my goodness.
No, it's been a nightmare. I mean, that's the reality for this industry, for the restaurant and food service industry. It's something that nobody has gone through before. That's needless to say, and everybody's eager for us to get back to whatever the new norm is, but start getting people back into the restaurants, properly spaced out for now, and get back to some normality in our lives.
And of course, eating beef.
Eating beef, yeah, absolutely. Whether it's a steak or whether it's the hamburger, it doesn't matter. Just make sure it's beef. You got it.
You're like the Hamburglar. Okay.
I'll stop doing the props. I'll stop with the props now. I feel like one of those comedians in Las Vegas. That's the last prop I'll pull out here today.
Do you juggle too?
No.
Okay. Hey, next, our final panelist is Marcel Blais. He's with Chop Steakhouse. Yum, yum. Hey, Marcel, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me here today, Sean.
Tell us about Chop.
Yeah, you bet. Chop is a steakhouse brand. We're right across the country. We have 14 locations, about to open 2 more in Saskatoon and Halifax. That Halifax location will literally take us coast to coast, so we're really excited about that. For us at Chop, we've been on a journey of understanding and trying to understand where we fit in the sustainability journey when it comes to food. And we've been on that journey with respect to the CRSB for just about 5 years now. And most recently for us, just before COVID struck in early March, we launched a new menu, and we're the first full service restaurant in Canadian history, chain restaurant Canadian history, to have the CRSB certified beef on our menu in our burger. So unfortunately, COVID struck and changed things really quickly, but we were happy to hit that milestone just prior to COVID.
And what's been some of the early reaction to that? That's pretty cool. That's an awesome story.
Yeah, it is, and we're really proud of it. I mean, oftentimes, Sean, what happens for us is that we get early indicators of how a new menu item is going to perform based on the reaction from our teams. We employ just over 1,000 people across the country, and they're tremendously excited about our participation with the CRSB. They recognize that our team, or our guests rather, have a lot of questions about where their food comes from. And so they're really proud to be able to talk about our involvement with the CRSB and what we're doing to advance sustainability in our industry. And the burger sales were always strong before. They still remain strong, but obviously with COVID, our sales have dropped dramatically. So tough to do a black and white sort of, apples to apples comparison. But we still believe that it was a successful launch, and we continue to get good feedback about it.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that people want to know where their food came from. So let's start there where it does come from. Let's talk to Mary Jo here first. Mary Jo, how do you define sustainability in your operation?
Sure. Yeah. So for us, we kind of look at it, along with some of the principles that are in the CRSB. When we first took over this, we took over a farm that was on, marginal farmland, not suitable for crops, so it's perfect for pasture. And we really took a look at it and decided, how do we want to make sure that we can improve the land so that it's better than what we started with, and then make sure that it's something, whether our kids choose to remain in this industry or not, but something that's in a much better place than when we leave it, and that we can produce as many pounds as beef as possible with as little of resources that we can. Obviously, there's still an economic part of it as well. We want our operation to be economically sustainable so that it can sustain our farm and that we can keep doing this and keep enjoying it. And those are really the main things for us, is trying to transition an operation into kind of, 2020, and getting it more modernized and being able to keep it going and in line with all of our wants and needs and desires.
Yeah, Carleen, how about a KCL? How do you define sustainability, and how do you drive it on a daily basis?
Yeah, so similar to Mary Jo's, just creating an opportunity for the next generation to thrive in our industry, and that means holding our core values, so love of the land, hard work, animal welfare, all of those, holding them high and close, but also continuing to be efficient and economically viable. I think those are kind of key points. And then also collaborating together as a whole value chain. So from the rancher to the cattle feeder to the processor to the retailer and the consumer, all coming together and saying, what does sustainability mean to everyone, and how can we drive forward with our core values together?
It's a big word, right? And,
yes.
And a lot of work has been putting in to try to define it in the beef industry, and Canada has definitely been one of the leaders there. Darren, as you hear what the producers just told us in terms of how they define it, does that translate into the food distribution, food service side?
It certainly translates. The challenge, and I would say going back to, more than 5-6 years ago, is you never had a lot of questions from customers around that word sustainability. In fact, you had very little questions around much of the attributes of the beef of beef, other than, maybe, is it Canadian? Is it AAA? Is it AA?
Yeah.
That was sort of where we're at. But certainly in the last 6 to 8 years, we're seeing the trend in our business where we're getting asked hundreds of questions at every call from a customer saying, okay, great, Darren, we know you've got AAA beef, but now let's talk, is it sustainable? Which ranch did it come from? What feedlot did it come from? And the sales reps are going, whoa, here's Carleen's card, call her, So,
Yeah.
so we're working very hard and fast to get our sales teams and our products within our company, but the sales reps up to speed, so we can answer all of these questions that continuously come from our customers, and it is what they're looking to educate their customers in turn.
So Marcel, you're customer facing, Okay, so you're the one that has to talk to the consumer and try to explain this to them as they're asking those questions face to face. You know, I want to see is this beef, is this steak that I'm eating sustainable? How do you define it at CHOP?
Well, you know, before I talk about how I define it, because I think it's more important, and I think it's always important for us to remain guest-centric. And I actually think the producers, what you've heard from the producers today, is what's mostly closely associated to the heart of our consumers and our guests. And that's that notion of, I want to leave this place a little bit better than I found it. And, you know, I really feel like there's that simplicity of that sentiment really reigns true with our guests. And they just want to know that the choices they're making, where they're spending their dollars, what they're consuming, is in some way supporting that sort of sentiment. And, you know, of course, depending on which guest you're speaking to, they'll have different levels of intensity. They'll have different specific hot buttons and points. But I think it's important for all of us at all the levels throughout the beef production to be mindful of the fact that we're here for our guests, we're here for the end consumer, and we really need to pay attention what's most important to them. And as I said, I think the producers here on the panel have really expressed that well. From my standpoint, at a macro level in our organization, you know, I look at sustainability, whether it's in the beef supply chain, whether it's in other parts of our business, and you know, I think we just as good stewards, business stewards in the communities that we live in, we just have to ask ourselves, are the activities that we're doing something that we can continue to do and keep having the planet the way it is, the way we love it? And are we contributing to that, a better planet, a better place for our kids and their kids? And so, of course, you go down that rabbit hole and it can get very specific depending on what the topic is. But overarching, I think that's just the questions that we all have a responsibility to ask ourselves.
And do you find, though, Marcel, people are walking into the restaurant more educated on sustainability? Like the questions are a little bit more intense, have a little bit more density to them than maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, Sean, it's a fantastic time. The access of everyone in the world to real information, the access, you know, pre-COVID to people traveling, getting a chance to experience different cultures, different flavors of food, different ways of food production coming to the table. All those things have served to create a much more informed populace. And that's good. That's good. It means that they're asking tough questions. And overwhelmingly, people want to know where their food comes from. They want to know how it got to the table and to their plate. And, you know, I think it's a really good thing. I think I think information is power, and I think it creates a dialogue. And that dialogue is where a lot of these kinds of things start. It's certainly where I believe the CRSB started, was with conversations about this topic.
Now, Darren, we alluded earlier to the chaos of COVID and how it has really been a disruption to the food service sector. You know, April Stats Can numbers, food service down like 61%. It's been a real challenge. With challenge comes opportunity. Is there ways that we could leverage sustainability during these COVID times and beyond?
Yeah, one of the things that we talk a lot with our customers about through this COVID is that more so than ever is brand and the understanding of your products is key. Because, you know, at this point, restaurants have less than full capacity that they're allowed to have customers inside. So it's not the time to be potentially cutting costs or going to programs that you're not really sure what you're getting in terms of, was it from a sustainable ranch farm? Now's the time to really socialize, bring these products in, stand behind them. As with Gordon Food Service, we would stand behind whatever products we're selling and make sure that your customers are aware that you've got a product that is very sustainable to the public moving forward. So we're absolutely out there telling that story.
Yeah, Marcel, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's interesting. I agree with you. I believe that we should continue to reinvest in sustainability, but there's a real challenge out there for food service. You know, you noted close to 50% decline in sales. you have no choice. You have to cut costs out of your operation. The key is where you're going to cut those costs. And I actually think that really crystallizes the opportunity for CRSB and sustainability specific to beef. Now more than ever, it's incumbent upon us to go, there's value in this sustainability to the end consumer, because if there isn't value in it for them, then it is a cost, unfortunately, that'll have to be cut. Now, I certainly don't feel that way. We continue to invest in spending more money on the beef that we purchase to ensure that we have sustainable beef. That's important to our consumers. That's what we believe. But, we have to, as an industry, continue to do a good job to make sure that we aren't on that list of expenses that are getting cut, because you can be sure there is going to be a large list of expenses that have to be cut for these businesses, these thousands of restaurants across Canada, to survive.
Yeah, and getting back to the point that you have the CRSB logo on the menu. That's a good example of where that we want to get to a point, and maybe we're there in some regions where people walk into a restaurant like Chop, they see that logo and they're like, yes, this is where there's that linkage, right, of that logo to what's actually happening on Carleen and Mary Jo's farms. That's where and it's increasing sales. It's dragging product or pushing product or pulling, however we want to put that, through the system. That's where, Marcel, we're really, really hitting on success.
Yeah, I would agree. And, we're still at infancy stage. I think that logo on the menu creates as much questions in the early stages as it does the, yes, I love it. And that's okay. It gives us a chance to tell our story. And, but we need more people to do that. We need more restaurants to jump on board, and we need to continue to tell our story.
So, and to that point, Marcel, we need distribution to have, and the ranchers to grow the product and have distribution to have the product in a format where we're purchasing enough so it is a viable priced option to the restaurateurs, right? So
absolutely. Carleen, how do you think all of this has changed people's perception or interest in where their food comes from?
You're referencing like COVID?
Yeah.
Well, I think definitely with the packing plant shutting down, people thought, beef doesn't come just straight from the grocery store. They started to think about the logistics of what brings beef to their plate. And so I think we had definitely more people reaching out to us asking for beef straight from our farm. Just, they wanted to fill their freezers. They wanted to see it in their hands, and they felt trust going straight to the producer, I guess. So I think that's shifted for sure.
Yeah. Mary Jo, how about you?
Yeah, very similar. So we deal direct. Before all of this, 80% of everything went to restaurants. So when everybody shut down middle of May, suddenly we had a ton of beef that we didn't really have much of a home for. So it was interesting to see people, even in our local community, who, all of a sudden were reaching out because they were going to the grocery store, and for the first time in their life, they were seeing a food shortage and not able to get that beef. So it definitely had them starting to think about, where it's coming from. And, they just went to the point of, I want beef in my freezer and I can't get anything. So I think that has been great because it's been positive to open up that conversation and open up their eyes. And it's been interesting, even in our little network around here, I've noticed that people are now sort of, Facebook's great for everyone making their posts and saying what they see out and about. But I've noticed people posting things like that they saw, I'll just say beef from a different country in the local store instead of Canadian beef. So that's something I hadn't seen before. So I think that's been positive to get their thoughts on, well, we should be supplying, ourselves first and have that Canadian beef at our fingertips. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, Mary Jo, when you think about sustainability, where do you see the opportunity from a producer's perspective here? Because you defined it earlier as you see it from your farm, but how do you translate how you define that into an opportunity? And obviously there's the marketing side of it, but as you're doing direct, but there's also, you got to be profitable while you're doing it too.
Absolutely. And as everybody that's in the beef industry knows, like the margins are pretty small. And then when you're doing direct, what we're doing, you know, a large percentage is going to our local abattoir and that sort of thing. So as an industry, if I think beyond what we're doing here, where it's just, you know, straight from us to someone else, I'd like to be able to, you know, ship all of our cattle to a packer, to somebody, and have that recognition for the work that we're doing. So say something like a CRSB logo behind it, and have that consumer understand what it means. Like Marcel said, we do have that in Ontario. We're also registered with the Verified Beef Production Plus. People see the logo, but they don't actually quite understand what that means. So having a consumer be able to see something and understand what it is, and have that translate all the way back to the guy who's out in the pasture with the calves being born. For me, having that reward for all the work that we've done, that would be sustainable and allow us to remain in this industry and have others want to join it as well.
So, hey, Carleen, you mentioned you were getting calls from people saying, hey, I want to buy like a side or a quarter of beef during all of this. And I'm sure that happens pre-COVID as well. Do you find it difficult to communicate, you know, some of the messaging around sustainability to some people that necessarily aren't from a farm? What are those conversations like?
Yeah, you know, people looking for beef aren't often questioning that with us, but
They're already from a rural setting.
yeah,
Well, then you've got some advantages. That makes it a lot easier when you're selling to an educated on the topic population. Mary Jo, is that a bit of a struggle sometimes when people are trying to order direct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was more of a struggle when we first started. You know, now we have things like social media where people research you and they scroll to the bottom of your feed and they see pictures of your cattle on pasture or see pictures of you feeding them. So in the initial days, we used to get tons of questions about how they were raised, what they were fed, you know, what kind of vaccination program we were on, and all those types of things. And now we find that they're looking at that history of us that's available online and kind of inferring from them, and then they're just coming to us straight and asking about price. So we've already kind of has that built up.
So
it's an interesting question, Sean, because you can see, like, you know, where maybe our customers are calling Mary Jo and Carleen directly because they're not the food service side, maybe the distribution side isn't quite there yet in the same capacity to explain what the CRSB is and what sustainability is. One of the reasons that I'm involved with the CRSB is for that education piece. But yeah, I would assume that if someone was to call Mary Jo, it's because, well, I'm calling the farm direct. But how can we, you know, I would like to see how can we get the distribution link in there so customers are comfortable calling a distributor and saying, and hence the CRSB process.
Well, Darren, and on that point, how do you communicate, you know, in terms of the CRSB logo and the certification, when you explain some of the criteria, because, you know, there's a lot of work that went into it, when you explain that to some of your customers downstream, what are some of their reactions as they're first exposed to it?
Well, the first point is that we're still working towards the CRSB at Gordon Food Service. Some very exciting announcements certainly coming very soon into this fall. We'll rely heavily on the team from CRSB to help educate our sales teams to handle some of those questions, and rely on the CRSB as well to message out to customers who might go to the website on where the product is available. So, you know, right now we're just in that infancy stage of getting our sales reps educated on it, how to handle those questions on the brand and on sustainability.
So on the education point, Marcel, what kind of training goes into, you know, the waiter, the waitress? They're the ones getting the question because it's on the menu. So is it that there's some work there to be done at the restaurant to make sure that they have the right answers to go with those questions?
That's right. And you know what? This is a food product that has so many positive attributes that's almost the challenge. Is there's almost too many good stories to tell, and you can get lost in that. Canada has a reputation for producing the best beef in the world, and there's a reason for that. Our consumers are looking for the end experience. And so, we teach them a lot about the quality of the beef and, about how we only serve fresh beef. And we talk about grade and marbling and the tenderness that results from that and the flavor profiles and the different cuts. And so that would be the entry level education that they would get. But when we talk about the CRSB, depending on which way you look at the criteria from the CRSB, it can get pretty technical. As the producers know, the packers know, there's some pretty rigorous standards in there that we're trying to achieve, and they can be pretty technical in nature and specific to that level of the production chain. So for us, the most success I've found, and I've seen it in our team's eyes, is they're shocked when they learn how important the producers are to preserving the grasslands and how important cattle production in our country is to preserving the environment, and that these family farms, which make up the backbone of our beef industry and our economy, these family farms are protecting the environment. They're amongst the best stewards that we have out there for the environment. And when our young team members learn that, I can see it in their eyes, and they're going, wow, like that's not what I saw on Netflix. Like I saw this industry was destroying the planet. And certainly I can't speak to what happens in other countries as well as I can in Canada. But when we show them the evidence, we show them the support we get from Ducks Unlimited and WWF, they're blown away going, wow, these organizations support beef production, and it gives them a sense of pride. And really, in anything you sell, if you believe in what you're doing, you're going to be convincing and sincere. And so our goal when we're teaching this is to break through that way. And there's a lot of things. There's many reasons to love the Canadian beef story. But for me, that piece about preserving the grasslands is the one that I see, at least with our team members, really resonating and breaking through, because it's surprising to most of them based on the media that that we all consume.
And, unfortunately, and not just the grasslands, but the wildlife that habitat's part of those grasslands as well. And you mentioned some of the documentaries that are out there on Netflix, as just picking on Netflix, I guess. Carleen, when you see some of those documentaries, or saying documentary might be a little bit too complimentary in some cases, but we hear a lot about beef and greenhouse gas emissions, and that's what gets focused on. Yet there's all of these great things we're doing on the environmental file when it comes to beef. How do we try to change some of that narrative as a producer?
I think instantly of that recent Burger King commercial, the methane one.
Yeah.
You guys have seen that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And actually we advocated in the industry, spoke to Burger King and actually got through to them, and they're reviewing what their message was, and they're going to a farm and they're seeing where they went wrong. And I think it's important that we keep working hard at pushing our message. And I think it's great to have places like CHOP and McDonald's behind us telling our story, because me sitting here as a feedlot operator, I can't get my message out in the way that they seem to be able to get it out. I think they're the storytellers, they're the people in the public, and I think it's really important. And I think that's why the work that CRSB is doing is so good, is that they're bringing us all together and they're helping us tell our story that we have had trouble telling in the past. So,
well, and you bring up the Burger King commercial just as an example. One of the focuses of that commercial was about cow farts. When we know that actually the methane issue is more to do with burps. It's just one, it's a small inaccuracy, but it's important. And I had talked to Dr. Frank Mittler from UC Davis, who actually was one of the big pushers to get that commercial changed or pulled from TV. And let's sit down and talk about this, because there's a lot of good stuff. As we've been, Marcel brought up about the grasslands, there's a lot of good stuff that's happening here on the environmental file, and trying to as a person in the beef industry, you look at this and you're like, how do these misconceptions exist? And that's one of the reasons why CRSP is in place, is to try to market some of the good things that this industry is doing. Mary Jo, how do you react to some of those documentaries that you see out there?
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, we work hard, day in, day out, and trying to keep our family going and our farm going, and then to see some of that, it can break your heart. But at the same time, you have to understand, when I look at even the school that my son goes to, he's the only kid in his class in a rural school now that is on a farm. Whereas when I went to that school, every single kid in my class, we actually called ourselves the farmer gang, because we were all farm kids. So you just have to understand, like, I have to put that perspective in myself, is that, we are, the majority of us, so many generations removed from the farm. And, you can't fault people for not knowing what they don't know. So you just have to try and tell your story. And we try to do that through our own social media and promotion, but it's a full-time job. So we need those excellent partnerships with our processors and our distributors and our restaurants and everything. And that's why things like the CRSP are so appealing, because if we can build that trust in the public of this is what this means, then, that's great for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, sometimes we get our back up as people that are growing up in this industry. We do all the time, right? And you just got to sort of take a deep breath, sit back, and ask yourself, what do I know about drilling oil? Or as I go to the gas pump and do the switch and my truck just fills up. You mean the oil's not drilled below the gas station? You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff we don't know a lot about, and we put ourselves in other people's shoes. So, Mary Jo, what do you want consumers to know about how you raise beef in Canada?
I want them to know that, there are people behind their beef that they're eating on their plate that are so proud to do what they do. And, I grew up on a farm as well. And one of the things that we would always say at the end of the day, or at the end of, the Christmas season or that sort of thing, we'd be sitting around the table, and my dad would always say, just think about how many people are sitting around one of our roasts right now and enjoying that with their families. And behind that is a whole bunch of, work that we've all talked about today and everything that comes with that. And I want people to know that, we are listening to what the consumer wants, and we are trying to do our best job for ourselves, for our kids, and for everyone. And I want them to have confidence in Canadian beef for sure.
Carleen, how about you?
Yeah, same, like the pride and the love of what we do, and there's people behind it for sure. But also, we work really hard, and we put a lot of thought, care, professionalism into our product. And so we lean very heavily on experts like veterinarians and nutritionists, and we don't take what we do lightly. And every animal that we send to the customer is brought up with so much thought that it's the best that we can do. And so we want to make sure that there's always a product they can trust.
Yeah, health, traceability, keywords there for sure.
Yeah.
Darren, what do you want producers to know about your commitment to beef sustainability?
What the producers, well, I want them to know that the customers, and you're hearing this today, even from Marcella, a customer of a distributor, where they want to know all the information about, they want to hear these stories about families. They want that information so they can in turn take that back to their customers. We want to build the sustainable network of food supply at the distribution level. Obviously, we're talking about mass feeding, so to some degree at distribution level. So, we want to just keep pumping more and more business that way, so we can keep the sustainability trend going, and make sure that we keep telling these stories. Marcel said it too. I mean, we love to bring producers into our warehouse facilities, talk to sales reps. I've taken sales reps, as some of you who know me in the past, have taken the sales reps up to Alberta. We've spent time with the producers just to hear all these stories, to see 20 kids running around, to see grandpa or grandma who've been doing this for 100 years and are still sitting there and still get up every morning at 4 a.m. So, I mean, it really does just sink into you. And the sales reps, when they get that sort of, when they get that knowledge and that feeling, they go back and go into the customers. They sell with passion. Absolutely.
Marcel, honestly, I'm broad brushing it, but I don't think the general producer population understands the power of stories and images. I just think it just plays so much into what the consumer is really looking for. Marcel, do you agree with that?
Well, I agree with the power of stories, but I disagree with that they don't understand it. I mean, when I go to visit producers and I talk to people like Carlene or Mary Jo, and you've got these multi-generational businesses, they know their own story and they're proud of it. And what I hear rather is a frustration of, I'm one small little piece in this massive puzzle and I can't get the word out. And you know what I would say though is that I often hear at these types of conversations and meetings, across the country, that there's a frustration with the market out there and their perception. And I would like to challenge all of us in the beef industry and go, if you count the thousands of producers across the country, you count all the meat cutters and packers and the restaurants who all have a vested interest in beef, because beef is not only good for you, it's not only good for our businesses, it's profitable. This is something we all have a vested interest in. And when you put together that number of people, that many voices, and the budgets that we have at some of those levels, like within restaurants for marketing and so on, we don't have a problem with getting the word out. I think the challenge is getting alignment within all those different stakeholder groups about what that message is going to be. And as I said, we actually have a problem of too many good angles to take. And we're plagued by a history of not talking with each other. And it's perhaps one of the best things the CRSB has done, in my opinion, is brought together all these stakeholder groups, because it was not normal for me to talk to anyone other than Darren. I wouldn't, in the past as a restaurateur, I'd talk to Darren to get my beef, but I would never talk to Carlene or Mary Jo. I would never go to a packer to see how they're producing their beef and them listen to me about what I think our customer needs are and what they can change in their operation. And, but we all have to be open to those kinds of things. And I said it earlier and I'll say it again. I think we have to be extremely guest centric or customer focused in this journey. And we have to really pay attention to what the customer wants. But we have the voices, we have the money to do this. We just have to get alignment, and it's through discussions like this that we achieve that.
Great stuff. Time flies. Before we get to the live Q&A, let's run through our panel and get some final words. Mary Jo, any final words for the audience?
Sure. I just wanted to thank everybody. I really enjoyed the discussion. It was awesome to hear all of the different perspectives, and thanks to the CBIC for having us on. And yeah, just wanted to say I'm very hopeful for our industry. The fact that we have such great dialogue and so many of these type conversations going forward, I think we're headed in the right direction. So thank you very much.
Great stuff. It was great to have you. Carlene?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Thanks, Mary Jo, for being our producer here with me, and Marcel and Darren for coming and listening to our stories and supporting our industry. Here at KC, we look forward to the future, and I think the beef industry has a lot of opportunity to continue to be great. So thanks.
Absolutely. Great stuff. Darren, it's great to get the food distributor perspective. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, and I echo my thanks as Mary Jo and Carlene have, and Gordon Food Service Canada looks forward to continuing and growing sustainable beef across our country.
I need to get my hands on one of those meat masks. Is what I really do.
I need one of those, Darren.
Yeah, exactly.
Marcel, that can be arranged. Arranged.
It's like our gift package for being on the panel is a meat mask. Marcel, it was great to hear restaurateurs' experience with sustainability.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a real pleasure and a real privilege to share the virtual stage with my fellow panelists. Thank you, guys. But I want to give a big shout out to all our hardworking producers out there. I know it's been challenging times through COVID, a lot of uncertainty, and we're really excited to have our restaurants reopening, and we just feel really privileged to be able to sell fresh Canadian beef to Canadians across the country, thanks to all your hard work. So keep on keeping on.
Awesome stuff. Okay, let's jump into the live portion here. We're going to do our Q&A. If you do have a question, make sure you put it into the live dialogue box. Okay, we're here. We're ready to rock. It's question time. So remind everybody, if you do have a question for any of our panelists, make sure you enter it in the Q&A portion. And we're looking forward to getting to as many of them as we possibly can. Marcel, I've got a question for you here. In a non-COVID world, do you hope to offer CRSB certified whole muscle products at CHOP?
Yes, that was the path that we were on pre-COVID. The reality is that the feedback that I get is that we are just waiting for more producers to come online. Obviously, we use a fairly significant quantity of beef, but the burgers seem like the first stage to go through things from the help with McDonald's driving that process. We were able to get a burger on our menu. But yeah, there's no question that long term, we're committed to getting the whole muscle products be CRSB certified as well.
Awesome. I love the new backdrop too. That was a quick switch for you.
Question. Television.
Yeah, exactly. Got a question here from Dr. Stan Blade. Hey, thanks everyone. Great job. Quick question to each panelist. What is a recent innovation you have incorporated into your business? Let's start with Carlene. Are you there, Carlene?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go for it. What's a recent innovation you've implemented?
I would say in the last 5 years, we've been doing some upgrades to the bottom of our pens in our feedlot, and so we do a roller compacted concrete. So it's a new floor for our pens that kind of just helps keep the maintenance down, and it's a better floor for the health of the cattle and has some really good benefits to it. So.
Okay, cool. That's that fly ash. That's pretty cool. Absolutely. Mary Jo, how about you?
Yeah, so as I had said before in a little bit of introduction about us, we're on mostly pasture land. So some of the things that we use tumble wheels and solar fencing on most of our farms. Most of our farms actually don't even have hydro. So we're using a lot of those type things. From the other side of it, some of the innovations that we've brought in is the barcoding. So we do barcode each cut of beef, so then we can scan it and figure out exactly which cut it came from or which steer it came from, and then what are kind of net pounds of beef that went out the door at the end of the day. So kind of both sides in the field and then in the actual store side there.
Cool. Darren, how about you? What kind of food distributors, what kind of technology you've been implementing?
Now, on the sales and marketing side, we were already on this journey prior to COVID, but we're certainly seeing much greater reliance and interaction in the digital platform. We live in this world where everyone thinks our phones are listening to us, but we're certainly engaged in a lot more direct to customer digital platforms that get out some of our messaging and some of these stories that we've been talking about today. So we're certainly seeing great growth in that. On the operations side, we're constantly looking at ways to improve basic things like, our carbon footprint. We've heard throughout the last couple of days, people talking about cow farts or burps and the methane that it releases into the atmosphere. But, really it's our trucks that are really causing a lot of these methane, these greenhouse gas problems. So we're always looking at ways to constantly be more efficient with our trucking and getting products to our customers to try to decrease that footprint.
Yeah, I've seen some people live in Los Angeles talk about how they've never seen so much blue sky in their entire lives than during the COVID period. Hey, Marcel, how about technology from a restaurateur's point of view?
Yeah, technology continues to develop at a rapid pace. For us, we're no different. On the food production side, with prime rib specifically, we've invested heavily in a product called Rationale ovens. These are really high-end ovens that help us cook our product and retain the moisture in the product while it's being cooked. So you just get a juicier, higher quality product and cooked perfectly. We put a thermometer in it. On the guest facing side of things, we've just recently launched contactless payment at most of our locations and coming to all locations soon. Just with the concerns around health and safety, we wanted to find a way where people could pay their bill from their phone without touching a terminal or cash.
Nice. No more waiting for the bill. Where's the
That's
wait?
right.
What's going on here? That doesn't happen at CHOP though. There's perfect service there. Hey Marcel, we'll stay with you for one quick sec. Question here via text. Marcel spoke to greater industry alignment. He said CRSB is a great step to making this happen. What else do we need to do to make this happen?
Gosh, I don't know. That's a really good question. The industry is too complex for me to really pinpoint what we should or need to do next. I just really believe we have a lot of great messages, and I don't quite know how. I know talking more about it, getting these kind of groups together helps a lot. But at some point, I think we really need to rally all the key players together and decide what our consistent message is going to be. What's the most important message that we want to drive home? You heard earlier somebody mention about antibiotics used to be the hot button topic. And clearly now the environmental file appears, at least to me, from my vantage point, to be the hot topic. And I really believe that we should focus on something in that area, but really we just all have to align, and we have to decide what the key messaging is going to be. And with such a big group, that's going to be difficult.
Yeah, there's a lot of different interests, but there is a common bond for sure. It's great beef. Mary Jo, as a producer, how does this quest for better alignment, and during the panel, I think it was Marcel that brought up the fact that, in the past, he would never talk to a producer as a restaurateur. Mary Jo, what does that mean to you as the producer? What benefit do you get from talking to everybody in the value chain?
I mean, we're farmers, right? We're beef farmers, so we know what we do. And all of that discussion just helps us understand how much better it moves through the process and what those people at the end are looking for. For our specific business, I mean, we're working with a very small provincial plant, as well as customers coming right to our door, or chefs coming right to our door. So we get to build that relationship. So I've seen the firsthand benefits on such a small scale, what that can do, and how much more they can help tell our story as well. So we have those distributors and processors and whatnot telling our story of the great things we're doing. So I see that takes us away from that daunting of, I'm just a little farmer, one person trying to tell my story, to having more voices to spread the word, I guess you could say.
Hey, Carlene, how do you feel about this cooperation up and down the value chain?
Yeah, I think it's very beneficial to us, where we, on the feedlot, we don't have a direct connection to the customer. We're removed from them, and so to have allies all along the food chain, and to have the CRSB logo that can tie us all together and all our practices together all the way to the consumer and the burger that they're eating, is really a great way to get our message out, I think.
Yeah. Darren, how do you think we could expand on the word sustainability? What is the next step here in terms of what we're trying to do in terms of sustainable beef production, as we're trying to attract new consumers in Canada and around the world?
Well, I think, we heard a little bit of, today we heard talk about all of us being on the same page in the industry, whether that's right from, Marcel and a restaurateur's perspective, right back to Carlene and Mary Jo. First and foremost, let's all get on the same page and agree on that, and we have, but let's get everybody in agreement that that this is definitely the future, because from there, then we could certainly get out and use this massive animal that we've created to really merchandise and market that word sustainability. The CRSB, through their audit process, has also been a great step, because again, it is a certified auditable process that we can stand right from from farm to the table and prove that this fell into those criteria. So that's a great starting point for all of us.
Question here from the UK, question for Mary Jo. You mentioned that you operate a rotational grazing system. Is this based on a specific herbage mix? Herbal lays are becoming a bit of a thing here in the UK. Provide us some details, Mary Jo.
Sure, yeah. So most of our pastures are under a grassland stewardship agreement, actually, with the Federal Environment and Climate Change Canada. So that's a cost share program. So there are requirements that come along with that allow for delayed grazing, as well as species that are specific to, I guess, encourage grassland birds. So most of our mixes are about 30% trefoil with some orchard grass. I think it's 30% ryegrass, as well as 10% clover. So the pastures that we have been rejuvenating have been in line with that program in order to access the cost share, but then also to align it towards the right direction that we want to go on our farm in line with our definition of sustainability. Hopefully
cool.
that helps.
Yeah, fabulous. Let's go to Marcel here with this one. How do you believe Canadian consumers evaluate beef? Do they see it as a commodity, a premium product, or do they think of beef in other terms? How do you see that?
I think it's interesting that question referenced commodity. I think historically, Canadian beef and a lot of food products have been viewed as a commodity. What I see happening in a lot of sectors in the food industry is the opportunity for people to specialize and premiumize their offering. And beef is no different than that. And we're seeing that start to emerge. And I personally believe that's good for the industry, that we're getting a level of focus on the attributes or the differences between beefs, whether that's a micro focus on a particular ranch that's in a particular area, or it's a particular attribute about that beef, whether it's the genetics or something else. So I do see that trend happening in the industry, and I think it's going to actually gain speed, particularly after COVID.
Darren, do you have any thoughts on that?
You know, Marcel's my customer, so I wholeheartedly agree with him. No, he's bang on. That's the message that we're not only hearing from CHOP, but we're hearing from multiple customers. So yeah, definitely echo those comments.
Yeah. And Carlene, when we talk about how we think that consumers view the product, commodity versus premium, what are your thoughts on that?
It seems like people have more of an emotional attachment to what they're eating, if that makes sense. Like,
yep.
What they eat now portrays if they care about the environment or if they care about their health or their kids' health. Like, there's a much more emotional attachment to it. So I think that's coming into play a lot in our industry now. Yeah.
Mary Jo, do you think it matters that, like, we've established in the beef industry criteria for what is sustainable? But the word sustainable has such a wide definition to so many people. Mary Jo, do you think that matters at all? Does that help us that definition's wide, or does it hurt us?
Oh, that's a tough question. Thanks for fielding this one to me.
You're welcome.
I think it can. You're exactly right. It can mean so many different things, and we've seen that in some of the various product labels that have come up on shelves on every, commodity in your grocery store type thing on what that is. I think what's important is that we do have a say as producers and as our entire value chain from distributors to our consumers in defining what it means for us. And hopefully a customer can recognize something there that they understand or that brings that emotional attachment, as Carlene suggested, to them. So I think it can be both positive and negative, depending on what their idea of it is. But if we can get out in front and continue to tell our story, then it's definitely going to be something that is just going to help us.
Okay, so Marcel, you're consumer facing. Does it help us, hurt us that people walk into the restaurant and they probably all have a different definition of what sustainable really means? What do you think?
I mean, I'm the kind of person that likes to look at every situation and go, there's an opportunity there. And for us, in two ways, I think there's an opportunity. If you look at Canadian beef on a macro level, I think you go, we need to kick forward the message of sustainability, best beef in the world, and the things that separate Canadian beef to the rest of the pack. And if commodity beef is included in that, great. Canadian beef in general wins. What I think the opportunity is, whether you're at the producer level or all the way up to my level, where you're trying to target certain guests, there's an opportunity then to differentiate even further and to segment even further. And typically in most industries, when you engage in that segmentation, there is an added cost to it, but you're able to charge a higher premium. And so the profits by moving away from commodity beef tend to be a little bit bigger, a little bit better. And so, but I think both are important to our industry. And so I don't think it's a matter of one or the other, good or bad. I think there's just opportunities out there, and it depends what you're after.
Yeah, good point. Differentiation's opportunity to just sell more product, expand our markets, right? Carleen, do you think that producers traditionally have been maybe a little bit too defensive in, like, of course I'm sustainable. Like, I've been doing this I've had a family farm here for 50, 100 years. Of course I'm sustainable. Do you think people have been too defensive about the word?
I think, yeah, in general, well, maybe not in general, but yeah, I think we have been. It's hard when it's your family farm that's being questioned. It feels like it's more your integrity and not as much as just maybe let's question our practices. So I think we have work to do in that, yeah.
Yeah, it totally, I get it, right? Especially, and I think sometimes it depends on the tone or where some of those questions are coming from, or some of those statements. And you referenced in the panel, the Burger King commercial, for example, right? We're going to get it. We're proud of our industry and some of the things that we're doing on the farm and ranch on a daily basis. Mary Jo, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that people, very similar to what Carleen was saying. I think most of us have been doing this for forever. So when we see initiatives come out that kind of ask us to put that paperwork side behind what we've already been doing on the farm for so many years, you can get your back kind of up of, well, why do I need to do this? Or what's the point of this, and that sort of thing. And that's where there's been so much great work done by things like the CRSB and building these linkages. So I think that producers are starting to see that shift, especially with some of the campaigns that have come out, like you just mentioned, and how important it is to keep that going and to kind of reevaluate for ourselves. Okay, this is where things are going. This is something that, I want to be involved in and have a positive impact instead. So.
Awesome stuff. Well, I appreciate everybody submitting questions. Fantastic. Great discussion on the panel and through the Q&A, and I really appreciate everybody, including our panelists, being a part of it here. A great discussion about I think a very, very critical component of not only our production, but also the marketing of this product that we are all so proud of here in the Canadian beef industry. So thanks very much to our panelists.